time has finally came. We now know what the first season of Diablo 4 is going to entail. And really, this is the next big step for the game. I mean, obviously it is, but also this is a game that did launch being pretty damn pricey, with the cash shop being available from launch. And for a lot of people who maybe don't like seeing the cosmetics and perhaps don't like seeing how expensive those cosmetics are, the idea is that with the shop, with that ongoing level of monetization, that perhaps we can expect a bit more from what seasonal content can actually look like. There's been a developer live stream today, as well as the full reveal, so it's time to chat about things. First, a little bit of a temperature in the community then. The statue has been inscribed with the first 1,000 people to reach level 100 on hardcore difficulty. I have heard a little bit of drama in and around that, with some people apparently not making the cut when they should have. I don't really know about that. But the other thing that's been interesting is watching the community, seeing how they've actually reacted to the game. For a lot of people who are super hardcore into the action RPG genre, they are either more than happy to go all the way up to level 100, find those chase items, which in the case of this game certainly can be very rare indeed, and play that way, potentially in a few different characters. For some other people, they may be hitting level 50, they're not exactly sure how the end game is going to feel. Maybe they start to dabble in those nightmare dungeons. Maybe by the time they get to level 80, get to like world tier 4, then maybe some of the things don't start to work as well for them. It's been interesting to see. It's been monitoring the Reddit, that kind of thing. Some people just kind of saying, okay, end game time. Now what do I do? People who are perhaps very into this genre, maybe with many hours in the likes of Path of Exile, and they're finding that, yes, funny enough, Diablo 4, a game that just came out, doesn't have as developed an endgame as Path of Exile. And yes, Path of Exile didn't really launch with an endgame. It had its whole beta thing way back when. But at the end of the day, Diablo 4 is coming out in the modern market where there are other very entrenched and well-developed entries in this genre. For me, I will say I enjoyed my way all the way up to level 50. I think I'm nearly like hitting on 60. I think the new changes that they brought in with more XP for Nightmare Dungeons, those actually were really fantastic. And casually, every now and then, yeah, I can hop in, play some Diablo. I will say that I do not feel the need to compulsively play the game, because I do feel like, yeah, alright, just too many Nightmare Dungeons. I'm not really terribly jazzed by that. So, to go into things then, we have the Season of the Malignant, where a form of malignancy is spreading across Sanctuary, and that really is the narrative framing for this season. You'll be starting the campaign off in Govashad, and you'll be helping a ex-Cathedral of the Light priest, Cormund, to stop the spread of this malignancy across the land. Now, the interesting thing is that there are no new gameplay features in this season before the campaign is complete. But do remember, if you have completed the campaign at all in your account, whenever you make a seasonal character, you can click the skip campaign button. So that essentially does solve that problem, and you can jump right into the stuff. So basically, it all centers around these malignant elite enemies, right? Where you can find them, you kill them, and you can slurp out their malignant hearts, which is a fun little framing. What this ultimately leads to, though, is you getting those hearts. They can then be socketed into your jewelry items, and essentially they, in terms of power budget, are around a legendary aspect, potentially a bit more powerful than a legendary aspect, and the quote here is, kind of stupid, new, broken builds that are hopefully balanced. So, it's just the idea. Yeah, they'll break the game in a little bit of a fun way, which I think is what all crazy chase items, seasonal sort of themes end up being in games like this, and that's a very fun thing. And in addition to just those elites, you can also find these malignant tunnels, and they will allow you to more specifically farm the sorts of hearts that you want. There's a total of 32 hearts. The hearts also have different colors, which correspond to the color of the sockets on your jewelry that you can put them into. So overall, that is the new mechanic and the sort of narrative framing of this season. Now, in terms of patches and dates, there's actually a patch right now that adds unique items to Helltide chests. Then July 18th will be the big patch day for the game, with the actual season itself beginning on the 20th of July. And as for the patch itself, they do have some more reward changes coming for Nightmare and Helltide activities as well. They've got 7 new legendaries and 6 new uniques, as well as a big old balance update, including a new boss, which appears to be this guy, who I assume is the leader of, well, the Malignant, whoever they may be. That's not all that's going on, because you'll be playing this through the seasonal journey. The seasonal journey is something that at the very least I know they were doing in Diablo 3 for its seasons. Essentially, it is just chapters that you move through. Now, you might think that this is more of a narrative thing. It's really less of that. It's more a structured series of gameplay challenges. So you can see here there are 9 objectives. You need to complete 7 to move on to the next chapter. And these are fairly simple. As an example, one of them is just collect 15 Gallovine, which is just, you know, stuff you find lying around on the floor. Another one, collect a Malignant Heart, available after completing or skipping the campaign. Another one is just to do any dungeon in the map. There's another one that is just to do any cellar. You can see that they reward a small amount of favor. Favor is essentially just your Battle Pass XP. And then when you complete the overall chapter, you can see you'll actually earn some legendary aspects as well as gear, more favor as well. So with this, basically, this is more of a guided, structured way to move yourself through the season and to more quickly accelerate your Battle Pass progress. You actually do get favor from regular play and from doing quests in the seasonal realm. Now, the other thing is that anything in the Eternal realm does not impact your seasonal journey or your Battle Pass. All of that stuff you've got to do on a new seasonal character. And that does mean that the Eternal realm is really where your characters go after their season is done. Again, in the ARPG genre, the idea of a character being your main, I suppose, is it's just a little bit less of a thing. So I imagine there's broadly going to be a few camps of Diablo players. I think at the extremes, you'll have people who will complete Diablo 4. Then a new expansion will come out, they'll log back into their character on the Eternal Realm, and they'll play the first expansion, and they won't really engage in any of these seasons. Blizzard have actually structured it specifically to allow for that, because the main plotline of Sanctuary is not something that's going to be progressed while you're doing these seasons. The seasons do have, like, quests and a story to them, but those are essentially all side things that don't feed back into the main narrative, which of course is just going to be, I don't want to do spoilers, but, you know, the follow-up after the end of the campaign. So with favor being your main reward, it does funnel a lot of your gameplay ultimately to that Battle Pass. Of course, you can progress your Battle Pass with favor, or for 200 platinum in order to purchase a tier skip. That's basically how the situation works. There is another thing, though, called blessings. To get into things then, here is the Battle Pass. You can see it's tracking your season journey. You can look at the season blessings, which I'll get to soon, and there's a mixture of free and paid cosmetics as well as the season blessings system. So everybody who got the deluxe or ultimate version of Diablo 4 actually already has the Battle Pass. You can spend, I think it's a total of $25 for the accelerated Battle Pass. I think they do sell an upgrade as well. There are 27 free tiers with 63 premium tiers, and all the cosmetics, with the exception of weapons, are class agnostic for this, and the premium Battle Pass is only for cosmetic rewards. There's absolutely no form of player power in that version of the Battle Pass. But there is actually power in the free Battle Pass, which I'll get to in a little bit. And also 666 platinum, which notably, of course, is not enough platinum to buy the next Battle Pass, because the Battle Passes do cost 1,000 platinum. But I suppose it does mean that you can get every second Battle Pass, which I suppose is at least something, though unlike the likes of, say, Halo Infinite, this is the type of Battle Pass that does expire when it's over. That'll be that. Perhaps some of its cosmetics will eventually be rolled into the rotating store. Then we do have the one gameplay impacting feature, which is called Season Blessings. Right, the way that these work is that as you go through the Battle Pass, and I should say, this does not get impacted by tier skips. So players cannot buy tier skips to unlock this power early or anything like that. As you progress through, you can get Smoldering Ashes, and these are used to do these upgrades. So these are things like a bonus to the XP earned from monster kills, a bonus to the gold earned from vendor sales, the chance of rare materials from salvage, a duration for all elixirs. Of course, all elixirs end up being a 5% XP buff, so that's kind of useful, and another one for the drop chance of powerful Malignant Heart drops. It's worth saying on that with the Malignant Hearts, I believe they're called Wicked Hearts, but one type of them is more powerful than the others. It's more of the chase type of Malignant Heart, and they have a color that basically is slot agnostic. So it's a little bit like a meta gem or whatever. It can go in any of those sockets. So ultimately then, that is the situation with this game. Now, there was one looming problem in the horizon with Renown. Good news. You do not have to re-clear your Fog of War, right? You don't have to go and re-unlock the map. You don't have to go and click on all of the altars of Lilith again or anything like that. Basically, your map and altar progress is something that is basically just carried over, plus access to your horse. And once the season ends, your seasonal characters and their renown progress will be transferred over to the Eternal Realm as well. As for your existing progress impacting the season, well, you actually have to log into an existing character first in order to have things unlock, and they basically explained that is just like that's just like a data transfer thing, because they weren't actually initially planning to do any of this. They essentially just implemented this fast, and they will likely have full featured implementation of this in the future. The idea that they did change a fairly significant part of their design based on player feedback, and that they were comfortable to accelerate that is a really good thing that shows that they are actually listening to the community. Same goes with those Nightmare Dungeon buffs that of course did follow all of the regular normal dungeon grind nerfs. Now there is of course the Platinum Store, right? There will be more things on the Platinum Store. As an example, here is the Necromancer version of the Mother's Protection Collection. Yeah, looks pretty sweet. Does look a bit more cool than some of the gear that I've seen drop in game, I guess, and that is how premium stores work. I think with them, you get the default, World of Sanctuary theme on your character from the stuff in game, but if you want something that is a little bit more stylized, not game-breakingly or, sort of fantasy-breakingly so, but definitely more of a different direction, then yes, it is on that store. Now, Q&A things then. They have heard people's concerns over cost and experience, and isn't that the thing in action RPGs? There was Diablo 3 that allowed you to chop and change things very quickly. That was a departure from, say, the Diablo 1 way of doing things. D4 then, I think D4 has been more based on the idea that you go in a direction and kind of prune your character. But they don't have anything to announce today. They have heard players' concerns over the cost and just the general experience of resetting a character. I know that if you want to refund a whole bunch of things on a Paragon board, that can be kind of tedious. They don't have any things to announce, but there is a new reward at the end of each season called a Scroll of Amnesia, and that will allow for a full set of your reset of your character to 0. So if you want to go for a completely new build, you can do that. Also, then the idea of seasonal content on the Eternal Realms is not a thing, but they reserve the right to move a seasonal thing onto the Eternal Realm. And a funny question in the Q&A, but one that I think does show an interesting, I don't want to say it's an issue that this game has, it's more something that it has to deal with, because I think it was quite successfully able to appeal to more people than just, say, the Path of Exile. Just think about its kind of enhanced level of immersion, cinematic flair, those things that really did, I think, attract that broader audience. Yeah, one of the things in the Q&A was, why does my character not carry over to the season? That doesn't make sense. And of course, to anyone who plays an action RPG, this is completely standard. This is completely normal. They said that seasons just allow for people to jump in and play on an equal footing. Hey, a new race is starting. Everyone get to the start line in time for it, and we're all going to have equal footing. Progress you had last month will not matter. Not a great analogy, because of course you'll train for a run. So their aim then is for seasons to be a fresh start, for people to play together and have opportunity for that. And that means that people can take a season off and not feel like they're at a disadvantage, because when it comes to the season after that, everyone's just going to start on the same level footing anyway. They basically want players to feel okay with taking a break when they hit the end of what they enjoy about the game, and then come back and see the new stuff when a season comes out. That, I think, is a great thing to hear from any game developer, and certainly when you look at seasons in ARPGs, some seasons are just better than others. I think really ARPG seasons, they are about the developers experimenting. There have been lots of times where, say, Path of Exile has had a season that's just fine. There's also been times where it's had a season that has been really incredible. So does somebody play a season for 3 months? Do they play a season for 2 weeks and then decide, all right, I've seen enough, I can go now? That's all within the design space of an ARPG season. I think, though, that the way the D4 was trying to bring a little bit of that MMO to the experience, that, of course, doesn't exactly jive with the idea of seasons. And that, I think, is just one of those things where ultimately they had a choice. Do we go full MMO, say Lost Ark direction, or do we stay to our roots as an action RPG? And obviously they chose the latter when it came to how they wanted to structure their live service gameplay. To continue then, this is actually one that I really liked as well. On the idea of dungeon teleports actually taking you into the dungeon, like whenever you use one of your nightmare sigils, they basically said, yeah, we know you want to be able to do that, but they explained that the implementation of it right now, where it takes you to the dungeon entrance, that was basically the fastest way that they could do it, and that was a quick fix because they wanted to get that functionality in for the players. A really good example then of them identifying a problem and being happy to just do the best solution for now, because seriously, those dungeon teleports made D4 endgame feel so much better. They've also then talked about the idea of adjustments mid-season, where they want there to be a structure around which players can expect buffs and nerfs. That's important, really, because if the buffs and nerfs are too thick and fast and really do a lot of change, people can feel like the game is moving out from under them. Again, one of those tricky things when balance actually matters in your game and people are investing real time. It seems that if something's totally broken, they will step in and fix things up, but other than that, they kind of want to have a more predictable cadence for how they handle that sort of thing. Also in stash space, they hear the complaints. They say they know it's frustrating and they hope to be able to offer more soon. And for season duration, they are going to be a minimum of 12 weeks, allowing for additional time when required, and they have nothing more to announce for a new class in Diablo 4 at this time. So that basically then is the situation for this game. There was another thing. So right now, Nightmare Dungeons, I believe, are out of a pool of 30 of the game's 100 and something dungeons. I think in the past they did say that they would rotate what dungeons are actually in the Nightmare pool on a seasonal basis. We just didn't hear them talk about that in this stream. I presume that's perhaps going ahead. Overall then, where am I left with the game? Well, I'd say my main point of frustration, and this is something I believe they have fixed for either Season 1 or Season 2, it's like inventory space, gems, and then, you know, I'm just finding like so many items drop, and there's like they drop at quite a range of item levels, including ones like even, okay, I'm not an ancestral gear yet, but like sacred. There's even lots of sacred gear where it's just like, all right, you're not useful. Where I at least find myself in this position where I kind of would wish that somewhat less or fewer gear drops would happen, but that there'd be a higher chance that I'd actually care about those drops. But the thing is, I don't feel like I can do that because I know that eventually when I want to start like re-rolling stats and gear and doing stuff like that, that it's going to cost a lot of gold and a lot of resources. So then even if I'm to only go through a dungeon, only picking up sacred bits of gear, I know not that this really matters because it's not like I've hit level 80 and I'm on to world tier 4 and I'm here at the highest, you know, item level bracket. Like I know that right now for me it's fleeting, and the only thing I should really give a shit about is level, because ultimately so much power just comes from Paragon boards. Which in itself, it's like weird because I am finding that the Paragon boards are a cool system that are enjoyable to go through, but they certainly do place level as being a lot of the goal, and the levels really do come slow. I have seen plenty of people talk about how really it's like after level 70 and 80, the game is starting to wear like a little bit thin for them. And it's kind of hard to say because I know in the past, like, it was pushing your greater rifts higher and higher and higher and higher, which was somewhat supported by those greater rifts being, you know, the sort of time trial style mode, which obviously Nightmare Dungeons, even at a high tier, aren't, because those are, you know, those are measured count, right, rather than measured. So it is a kind of an interesting thing. I think a lot of people are finding that, like, yes, this game does have chase items, but maybe those chase items don't feel attainable, so therefore they don't feel like they're a particularly rewarding thing. Kind of hard to say. Like, for me, I'm still at the stage where, like, getting a good aspect roll, and then I forget what it's called, but you know, when you suck the aspect, your legendary gear, and then you have it as a little item, I found that to be a pretty nice little system. So generally for me, the itemization and that kind of thing has generally worked, bar a few things like the defensive stats, like the resistances aren't particularly good as compared to some other defensive stats, so the game does have some oddness in and around that. I mean, that's mostly it from my perspective. Admittedly though, I'm a very casual player of these games, so I guess for me then the ultimate question is, well, what about the season of Malignancy? Is that something that I'd want to play? So far, I will say I expected a bit more. This does seem to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but from looking into the recent history of Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, this kind of seems to be in and around what a Diablo 3 season is like. Considering that these are like monetized with the Battle Pass and, the ongoing cosmetic store, I suppose I did expect a little bit more, like maybe a twist on a dungeon, maybe, maybe a new type of thing that I'd be doing. I don't know, maybe like a new thing has happened to the Whispering Tree and now there's some, set of challenges to progress through as you go through the season. But, not really. It does seem to be like a little bit more pedestrian and safe, and it's like I don't really know why I expected more, other than I thought that because the way they were doing the live service and the way that they were doing it, I just sort of thought that would have came along with more content on account of the Battle Pass and stuff. The way that I mean that is I thought that they would have invested in more content because they believed they could make more like money out of it. As it stands, I'm not super sure. Like, I think this will be fundamentally decently appealing to people who have only hit max level or close to it on one character in the Eternal Realm thus far. So would I enjoy doing a bunch of this again, say, on a Barbarian? Totally. That would be fun. I have to imagine, though, like in 1 or 2 seasons' time, for somebody to come back, they're really going to have to feel like there's a totally different build they can do in their favorite class, or that there is like a new gameplay thing that they can jump in and do that's like new and exciting and perhaps changes up what the end game feels like, makes it more than just like do nightmare dungeons. Kind of hard to tell. That's overall where I am coming to rest with this one. I don't think it's a particularly massive win that will expand the game. I also don't think that it's a big L. I think it is just fairly standard. And I suppose I'm maybe expecting just a little bit more. But again, I don't know if I'm biased against Blizzard for like whatever reason. I don't know if I had unrealistic expectations. So I guess I'd love to hear what you think there on and what sort of thing you would have expected from these, from these. Because, I mean, you might think of, say, a Destiny 2 DLC, and, I mean, hey, or a season, and, like, hey, there's a few things with that, because I don't know about you, but have you seen all the videos from Destiny fans who really do not seem to be happy with Bungie right now? I've seen that, and I really do want to look into that, perhaps do a video, because, if anything, the process of researching that will answer a bunch of questions that I have, because I've been wondering, like, it all looks so good with Witch Queen. Oh dear, Lightfall has not been a great time. But anyway, they do seem to get more with their seasons, but then again, they do pay for their seasons, and they have the Battle Pass, and they have the Silver Store, and, I mean, Destiny 2 has got some real bad monetization. It's crazy, actually. It's really disappointing. But, like, I don't know if I've maybe been polluted by seeing what a Destiny season is, and I may be expecting more here, or maybe it's just in my head, it's still like, oh, it's Blizzard, they do big things. Not that, that's, actually, no. That's not what they're like for Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2. But I've got to tell you, on World of Warcraft, my god, those motherfuckers are pumping out a fierce amount of content. That game has had so many patches. There's one coming in a few days' time, and the PTR for the next patch is already, like, on their servers. It's not playable yet, but it is on their servers. It's just crazy. So the WoW team are going strong, I guess. Yeah, I just kind of want to know what's going on here. Let me know anyway. What are your perspectives? What were you expecting? Is this does this exceed your expectation? Is this what you expected? Are you disappointed? What's it like for your friends? I really would like to know, so do let me know down below. Other than that, then, that's it for me. If you want to check out our video game, The Pale Beyond, you can check that out down below. And other than that, well, I'll see you.